It is 6 o'clock, so we'll get started. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. We're here to discuss the surveillance cameras that are approved with the Customs and Border Patrol to talk about where they are going to be monitoring, what their capabilities are, and general questions that you guys might have on them. My name is Mark Inmeyer. I'm the council member of San Clemente. Over here we got Rick Leffler, Mayor Rick Leffler. I don't know if you wanted to say anything.
I'm just a council member, but I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. And then here I'll put the I'll turn the slide here real quick here. Then we also have two technical experts over here. We have Mike LeCobb, and then we also have Bill Krunger. I'm going to pass the mic to them real quick, just to say who they are, and then we'll go from there.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Mike Katz-Lakabe. I've been doing computer security work in my day job for about 30 years. And for about the last 20 years, I've been doing research on surveillance technology used by law enforcement, which seems pretty relevant here. So,
I'm Bill Krunger. I'm a resident of San Clemente. I am also the Chief Radio Officer of the Regional Emergency Communications Team, and that's how I came to have a good understanding of the planned site. I've been trying to get emergency communications gear up there for years. So I'm proficient at modeling out coverage networks, building network models and propagation maps, and I'll be sharing that this evening.
And we do have a few other dignitaries here, as well as representatives of dignitaries. So up on the screen, we have San Juan City Council member Sergio Farias, and we have, I don't know if she is, I haven't seen her, Supervisor Katrina Foley's representative, either Alyssa or Abby. Are they here? I haven't seen them come in. Maybe they'll come in a little later. State Senator Catherine Blakespeare's representative, Maya Munir. We have Congressman Mike Levins, Dana Point Representative Colton Roffin. And then Congressman Dave Minns, Representative Ryan Pham. I don't believe they are here. And then, just walking out in the back is former council member Chris Duncan in the back there, and former mayor. Yeah, so the general idea of tonight, we will present our what we know about the surveillance cameras. I will give my presentation. My colleagues over here will also give their presentations. After that, if any of the representatives want to say a few words on their thoughts on this, they are welcome to, but no pressure to. And then after that, we will open it up to questions, not necessarily comments, but questions. And we'll go through that format in a little bit. So with that, we'll continue on with the first part of the, there's the agenda. So a little bit of the background. About a year ago, San Clemente City Council, we were in talks. We were getting an influx of Ponga boats coming into San Clemente. In about a year, we had roughly 13 Ponga boats, and sometimes they would come in waves of 3 a month, and then none for a month, and then 4 in a month. And so we were trying to discuss what to do with this. One of the proposals was to put cameras on the bluffs that were infrared cameras that could be used with our lifeguards to search for swimmers in distress at night. They had similar technology used in Imperial Beach that could also be used to find Ponga boats coming in as well. So that was the original discussion. There were talks that went on between staff, between Customs and Border Patrol, or CBP. Went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Last November, a proposal came back that instead of doing any sort of bluff cameras, instead CBP wanted to put a camera at the top of our highest vantage point, looking over a huge swath of our town. The idea there was that they would be able to see way out into the ocean, 20 miles into the ocean, to look for oncoming watercraft into our vicinity. When it came back in November, council looked at it and said, we don't like the agreement that's being put in front of us. We have some concerns about privacy issues. We have some concerns about cost. And we sent it back to CBP. I'll be honest, I thought when sending it back to CBP with what we proposed, they would not give a counter lease and that it would essentially die there, come up with a different idea completely. Then what came back in January of this year was a different lease, and we'll go through the lease agreements here in a second. In that January meeting, the council voted in a 3-1-1 decision, so 3 council members for it, 1 council member, that was myself, against it, and then 1 abstention, that was Zen Wu. So we'll go through a little bit of what the contract actually goes through. So here's the contract with CBP. The location is going to be on Reservoir 5 communication site in the area totaling approximately 256 square feet, as identified in Exhibit A2. The picture on the left there was what was put into the staff report of what the camera will look like. This area on the top of El Salvador is right next to a lot of other communication devices, including a lot of telecommunication poles. Permitted use, defined as use of the site to deploy, construct, operate, maintain, repair, and remove and relocate surveillance tower system. This would be a 5-year term with 3 5-year renewal options. Now, it's important to note with that 5-year term, that is not up to San Clemente whether we want to renew that term. Customs and Border Patrol can decide whether they want to renew that term or not the city. So the city will not be up for our own discussion of whether we want to renew this or not for 20 years. The leasee will pay a one-time fee of $10 in addition to the expense of electricity over the life of the agreement. One of the issues with the November contract that was given to us is that they would pay us $750 for the upfront cost, and then the city would pay the electrical maintenance fee over the lifetime. So that changed a little bit with the new contract. At the same time, they are still getting the space for $10. The argument behind that was that in working in collaboration with security, whether it be OC sheriffs or other things, that because it is a security issue, therefore the city should not be making revenue off of that. The leasee will establish their own electrical utility connection and pay all related costs over the life of the agreement. Okay, there is the proposed site location. That is at the top of El Salvador. Okay, these are quotes from the staff report. The system being proposed would be owned, operated, maintained, and controlled solely by the federal government, with no shared system access provided to city staff or local enforcement. So any idea of sharing this with either the Orange County Sheriffs or sharing this with our lifeguards, which was the original proposal, that is not part of the lease. In response to privacy concerns, CBP has stated the system would be configured to avoid scanning residential areas that fall into the scan viewshed, focusing the system on the marine environment. So what we were told is that the city itself will be blacked out by these cameras. In another part of the staff report, actually just in the paragraph underneath that, when asked about is there any shared aspect of with the city or any sort of oversight of this, there may be an instance in which there is an active smuggling event detected by the system at sea, in which the subsequent smuggling event traverses through the residential neighborhoods. In such a case, the system may continue to track and monitor. To restrict this functionality would be contrary to the spirit and intent of the deployment. Therefore, they cannot make such a contractual obligation. So what this means in essence is that at any time, if there is deemed to be a smuggling event, they can take down that blacked out area of the city and monitor the whatever the engagement might be. So, Rick, anytime you want to interrupt me or add anything, please feel free. If I'm missing something, go for it. So the proposed lease, this is from my presentation on the January council meeting, that there be no local access or oversight. There's also no data use limits for what they can use with this, and that also gives broad permission for residential tracking. So these were some of the same issues that we brought up in the November council meeting, and when the lease was brought back to us, I was concerned that these issues were still not addressed. So with these, the city ultimately loses control. So CBP owns and fully controls the system. There again, there's no shared access for city or local law enforcement. The lease term is up to 20 years. And again, renewals only at CBP's sole discretion, not at the city's. Remedy limit, city can only allege breach. Federal immunity applies, meaning we can say that there might be a breach, but because of federal immunity, we would have no way to enforce that breach or really to monitor it or to take any action against a breach. So if they were to take down that blacked out area of San Clemente, I don't believe that we would know. I asked a question today to our staff, is there anything in the lease agreement that would say, hey, when this blacked out area is taken down, that we would be aware of that? No, that is not in the lease at all. And then say we were to find out about it somehow, maybe through a whistleblower or something else, again, we wouldn't have any action really to take against this. There's also a financial imbalance. So CBP pays just $10, assumes control, and yet city also is going to be one bearing political and litigation risk. If a group such as the ACLU were to come in and look at this, or if the state were to come in and look at this and make a lawsuit, it's not a lawsuit against CBP, it's a lawsuit against the city for making the agreement to begin with. So the city is on the hook for this, not CBP. And we get $10 for that. So again, this isn't a partnership. This is a federal installation on city land. Okay. Now the issue of privacy protections. So the part that I pulled from on the staff report, that it would avoid residential areas. This is not in the lease. This is just a verbal assurance. So they are telling us we won't do this, but it's not contractual at all. There's no geofencing or audit standards. We have this broad smuggling exception that, again, we would not know when this exception was put into place, ever. And the city has no verification. I specifically asked our staff, how would we know, and staff brought this question to CBP, how would we know if that this is working? How do we know that this is blacked out? And their response was, we will send you a screenshot. So the implication, residents are asked to trust a permanent surveillance system without proof or limits. Okay. No data use, limits, or oversight. Sorry, this is the same. Oh no, a couple new things on there. Yeah, so one of the other concerns might be that because CBP is underneath the umbrella of Department of Homeland Security, I also asked today in my briefing, is there any limitation, or would we know at all if any of their information from CBP was shared with other agencies within DHS, such as ICE? The answer was no, we would not know at all, and because it's a federal agency, there'd be no oversight of this shared information whatsoever. This also goes against California SB 54, which is a sanctuary law saying that California cities should not be working in conjunction with federal agencies when it comes to immigration enforcement. So how this comes together, I'll be honest, I'm not quite sure. So So the implication, San Clemente could host a federal virtual wall node misaligned with local values and state law. Okay. The staff report frames this as a need in order to stop illegal vessel landings. However, it's important to note way back a year ago when it was first proposed that the original proposals were talking about cameras on the bluffs and working in conjunction with our lifeguards to help save people in distress. And this could be anyone from our local swimmers at night, as well as anyone coming in through an illegal crossing. But it was there to protect and help them. What this is, though, there was no analysis of alternatives given once the CBP contract came back. So even though what we wanted was these bluff cameras, and there is a proposal coming up later in, not quite sure when, but the future agenda item to discuss still putting in more cameras on the bluffs that would look out over the bluffs, just the bluffs, and again in conjunction with CBP. But that's not what this is. This was something that was separate than what was originally proposed. So alternatives could include the city working closer with our Orange County Sheriff's Department, Orange County Fire Authority, finding coastal resources for coastal cameras, working with them so that then there would be shared oversight of those cameras. Joint regional surveillance with local auditability, improved coordination with Coast Guard and DHS, cameras on bluffs overlooking our coast. All these things were alternatives, but this was presented to us as the solution, or at least what was most desired by CBP. So, continue on. So what risks could this be to the city? Civil liberties and community trust. Let's say that CBP, we can trust them completely at their word, and we 100% know that they will not take down this shield of our residents. Even so, from the outside, this is a perspective of a big brother. And the perspective from the outside can then influence how people look at San Clemente itself, whether tourists come to San Clemente. We have the Olympics coming up here in 2 years. How does that impact our perception as a city that is inviting to all? It can also lead to mission creep. We don't know the cameras that are going to be installed. I asked them today what type of camera it is. Our staff does not know, nor will we know. We know the company of the camera that will be used, but not the exact type of camera. We can look at other cameras that are being used elsewhere. I also asked them, will we know if these cameras get upgraded? We will not know. I asked if these cameras will utilize AI. We do not know. I asked these cameras, the one thing that they did tell us was that these cameras will not have audio on them, so they won't pick up any sounds. But other than that, we don't know if they will be able to find heat, or heat sensors. We don't know what these cameras are capable of. We can make assumptions, and my colleagues here will talk a little bit more about what cameras can do today, but we don't know what type of camera is going to be installed here. Also, we don't know the legal and political exposure. Again, we won't know if this is used nefariously or in conjunction with other federal agencies. We just won't know, and then that also puts us at risk legally as well for going against SB 54. And again, the reputational risk, I covered that a little bit already. Okay, so with that, I want to go hand the mic over to Mike, and he's going to give you a little bit more about the technology aspect of these surveillance cameras.
Okay, you've already seen this slide, so we're not going to spend too much time on it. That's just the location. More importantly, this is part of a network of towers built by Department of Homeland Security to monitor the border. Currently, there's about 130 of these surveillance towers. There are plans for 300 more. So the one installed in San Clemente is part of that additional 300 that are going up. You notice that the point that is farthest north right there is in Del Mar. So they're going quite a bit further north coming up here. So these are the tower details from the agenda report, and they are pretty sparse. Things of interest, basically the radar, camera, a sensor of undetermined type, and communication hardware, probably a cellular modem or a Wi-Fi connection to like Starlink to communicate data back. And then in the staff report, exhibits A2 and A3 were completely redacted in the staff report. So interesting question about what exactly that data was there and whether hopefully City Council maybe got access to that in closed session or something. Next, so what we're talking about generally are autonomous surveillance towers, ASTs. That's how the DHS characterizes these. So as before, they have a radar, they have a camera. There is onboard artificial intelligence on these systems. They can autonomously, that means on their own without human interaction, detect, identify, and track items of interest. My apologies for the abbreviation, which looks like LOL, but that is actually items of interest. And it can, on its own, determine whether an item of interest is human, animal, or vehicle. Event information, so that's information about an event that it detects, whether it's a person, a vehicle, animal. Those radar tracks and the imagery, so the video feed, would be uploaded to AWS. So that's Amazon Web Services for those people who aren't familiar with those acronyms.
Tell us why that is important to AWS.
So Amazon Web Services is a government contractor. They provide basically a secure place for the government to upload all of this data and store it there on their whatever their terms are. So as mentioned before, we don't know the specific equipment that's going in there, but the photos and the capabilities very much match a product called the Anduril Maritime Security Surveillance Tower. And that has a 15-kilometer range for detection of surface vessels. Now, video cameras, there is no mention in the Anduril product information about the video cameras and what their range is here, but we expect it'll be in the number of miles. So multiple miles, probably approaching something on the order of 5 miles. Again, I say this knowing that we do not know exactly what the equipment is, but this seems to be the closest match to what is likely installed there based on not only what they have provided, but based on what has been installed already in other locations by the Department of Homeland Security. So this is the example that was given in the agenda report. And you will note here that it is pictured very close to the ocean. And the difference with the one they're proposing here, it will not be that close to the ocean. So that's the only reason I included that one. So here's an example from Anduril Sentry. So it's not the specific tower, but it's the specific types of monitoring that they do. So once they have detected something with radar, then they can point the camera at it, and the camera will also have that automatic detection of what type of things that are there. In this case, if you can't see it because it's a little bit small, it's identified 2 people walking on a trail on a hillside some miles away from where the surveillance tower is. Now this is a map showing what it looks like for radar. So radar obviously does not show images, but this will detect vehicles and people from a distance. And if you can think of like the typical sonar you see where you have basically a line going around in a circle and there's a dot that shows up every now and then, this is essentially the same thing. There'll be a radar moving around and trying to track individual items that it detects. So whether it's a vehicle or a person, right? One of their items of interest that they talk about. So as part of the privacy threshold analysis for these types of surveillance towers, this is a process that's required as part of our government. They're required to do a privacy threshold analysis for these surveillance towers. Currently, that analysis says that images are not deployed close enough to capture images from which an individual could be identified. That is the current state, or at least the the state at the time that the threshold analysis was performed. We fully expect that facial recognition will be the future direction that they go into. And certainly the equipment and the cameras that are installed on this for things that are closer to that surveillance tower will have that ability. They'll have imagery that is good enough to perform facial recognition on. The other thing that's specifically called out in that privacy threshold analysis is that it can capture license plates. So the exact license plate number that is on your vehicle. And the last thing, I just included this big thing of text, basically. It says it records imagery of border incursion activity, so someone coming to the coast unauthorized, and it blacks out the distance. It redacts the distance here. But we know from the equipment we're talking about that's at least 15 kilometers. It could be more based on where the location of this tower. And it says, again, it's without facial recognition capability, but we expect that to change in the future.
Could I ask one question on that?
Yes, sorry. Yes.
One of our council members said that they could that this camera would be able to see someone smiling on Catalina, which is about 20 miles away. Do you think that that technology is applicable to these cameras?
I don't think we're quite there yet. I don't think that this one, since specifically they mentioned that it's a relocatable tower, I don't believe it's going to have that sort of equipment in it. But in the future, who knows? And they said that since it's a relocatable tower, they could take it down and put up something new and improved that might do something like that. But I would be very skeptical. Just also marine layer, there's problems with that kind of visual imagery going out that far. So the other thing, training data. So AST, Autonomous Surveillance Towers, will also be maintaining machine learning training data, and those records should not be deleted. So for the uninformed, training data is what is fed into AI systems. It is how AI systems regurgitate information back to you based on the data that they've been fed and they analyze. So the question here is, in order for this system to determine what is smuggling activity, the idea is to train it on what is not smuggling activity, which means surveilling what is normal activity on the beach and perhaps in parts of the city. And again, that data is not going to be deleted. That is going to be retained. And presumably, they might have to, from time to time, gather new training data in order to improve the effectiveness of the system.
And will we know when they do that?
No, as I think he's made clear before, you will not know when any of this happens because there is no oversight for this that you will have access to. Lastly, I want to focus on the DHS lease. So he mentioned before, one-time fee of $10. For other surveillance towers in other jurisdictions, they have done a little bit better perhaps in their negotiating of a lease. So in Calexico, they get $750 a month with a 2% annual increase. And in Riverside County, they're getting more than $2,000 a month. And I want to note that one of the things that would have been interesting to see in a lease is some sort of annual reporting coming back to the city, right? When are there instances of when it detected something that turned out not to be the case? And what was the result of that? Was there an interaction with law enforcement that caused problems for somebody? So having some sort of accountability at the local level might be a useful thing to add to a lease going forward. But again, I will leave that discussion for the city council and the elected officials. But from a surveillance perspective, having that kind of accountability so you can actually go back and see, okay, was this actually effective? Was this worth the trouble that we went to? Was this worth the expenditure of taxpayer money? These surveillance towers cost anywhere from $750,000 to millions of dollars. So chances are on the low end here, we're talking $750,000, but it could cost much more than that. And again, it's all of our taxpayer money. So thank you, and I'll pass it on.
Yeah, Mike, I'm just curious. I'll ask you the question, although I know the answer. So in the Riverside County where they pay the $2,100, that's for one camera?
So it's for one tower.
One tower, but you know it's multiple cameras, and you know the hundreds of acres because it's a border kind of incursion thing out there. Oh, it's a little bit different. At least it's a little bit different than the maritime, because I don't think they can see the ocean from Riverside. Okay, that's all. I just wanted to clarify. Thanks.
That is a good point. These are not oranges to oranges comparisons, unfortunately, but it's very hard to find that information from the DHS. So I just want to give examples of other leases. One might suspect that a lease for property with a view of the ocean might be worth more. I don't know.
May I have the clicker?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
All right. So I mentioned during the introductions that I lead the Regional Emergency Communications team. I am quite familiar with the Reservoir 5 site. And Rick, you may remember from when you were on Public Safety Committee, I think it was over 5 years ago now, I earned the support of that committee to get equipment installed at that facility. And if I had known then that I only needed to offer $10 and it would have been done, I would have done that. But I've been trying to get equipment up there for years, and we still don't have it. Well, you haven't given me anything yet. and again, it's not for me. It's for the Regional Emergency Communications capabilities. And we have great coverage in San Juan Capistrano and Dana Point, and almost none in San Clemente, because we need a little bit of partnership there. But anyway, that's why I know that Reservoir 5 is wrong for maritime surveillance. I've gone up there to participate in countywide emergency communications exercises. When the marine layer is in, you can't see the city. You can't see the ocean. It's like you're sitting on a cloud. So it's just not a great fit. It's also well over a mile from the ocean. And if you look at the other facilities there, AT&T has a tower there. Orange County Sheriff's has a communications equipment there. OCFA has equipment there. The local amateur radio club has equipment there. It's a great location for that equipment because of the coverage it provides of populated areas, not for maritime surveillance. And this is not a hypothetical risk. Mark touched on it, but persistent surveillance of outdoor movement has been found to be unconstitutional. It's already done. And that California Values Act, it was intended to limit municipality participation in federal immigration. And regardless of your politics, there's good reasons for that. You can't administer a community if you've got groups living in fear. So there's good reason for that. And, sorry to harp on it, but $10 for 20 years is crazy. So this is a coverage model, and a lot of these coverage models that I'm going to show you, I had to create a few for this, but a couple of them I already had from my emergency communications network design work, right? So this is a model I've had for years. That is, it is the best communications coverage site for San Clemente. It is any relevance it has for maritime surveillance is coincidental. If it's good, okay, but it's the best spot in the city for surveillance. There is no better spot. If you look at the numbers there, that's the estimated population observable from a camera and radar array at that location. Nearly 70,000 people and nearly 2,000 square kilometers surveillable.
Bill, really quickly on that one. Are all those 70,000 people San Clemente?
No. Many of them live in San Juan Capistrano, Dana Point, and the various lagunas to the north. We're going to look at, and so we're clear, I don't think this is a great idea for the city either way, at least not as currently planned. But let's look at some alternatives. There's a city wastewater treatment facility. It's 380 Avenida Pico. They've got a 60-foot tower there. It's another location I had already modeled. Let me go forward here so I can see it. That covers 71% fewer residents and still provides excellent coverage of the ocean. And that's another city facility. The pier would put the camera right on the water. it would cover far, far less residents. That's a densely populated area, the Pier Bowl, right? So you still have over 25,000 people surveillable, but that water coverage is fantastic. Now putting it at some like DOE controlled land at San Onofre or at Camp Pendleton. Now those are federal facilities. It makes sense to put federal equipment there. It makes an awful lot of sense. They could probably get an even better deal than the $10 they got here. And that would put only a little over 1,000 people in reasonable surveillable range. And look at that ocean coverage. It's best in class. Another great option that wasn't really discussed, Orange County Sheriff's has Harbor Patrol at the Dana Point Harbor. They're right on the water. And I actually I have equipment very near there, and I have set up equipment at the Doheny Lifeguard Facility for that emergency data network. Little sidebar, but that little streak of coverage going north, that's Del Obispo, and it is really hard to get a signal there any other way. So that's an important facility for that. But that would provide excellent coverage of the water and surveil over 70% less residents. Yeah. Good. Yeah, please.
And I know you're at a disadvantage because you have no law enforcement experience. I have 38 years of surveillance, being a police officer. So I'll start off with this coverage here. So you would say that the Imperial Beach camera that they have is down at coast level, and you say that is a better idea to have it at coast level. Is that correct? That would be a better way of surveilling an incursion on the coast.
You want to have some elevation.
Okay, well, because do you realize that since 2022, there's been 17 people killed during Ponga boat incursions, and they were covered by cameras on the coast, and they were really good at picking up later. They weren't good at deterring at all. These cameras are supposed to be deterring and encountering them before they come in to land on the beach. When they come on the beach, it's too late, Bill. That's the problem. They're to deter people from the cartel bringing in these pongas when they know that we have them, and they're also to assist in encountering these boats or when they're 10 to 12 miles off the coast before they come in and people die on our coast. So that's why it's better to be higher than lower in this instance. So that's all.
Could I, or you want to respond to that?
Yeah, just briefly, that's, I certainly respect your law enforcement experience. I don't have that, of course. But there is data. It's not in this presentation, but I have some printouts in the back. And there's QR codes, there's links, and I'll email it to you also. But anybody who wants that, please, if there's not enough, take a picture of it. But there's several back there. There has been research on whether these systems improve apprehension rates, and the simple fact is that they don't. There is strong evidence that they result in actually fewer apprehensions, and evidence that suggests they do more is pretty soft. So I hear the logic in what you're describing, but it just doesn't seem to pan out that way.
Just explain why they would result in fewer apprehensions. Just explain the mechanics of that, how surveillance would count for fewer apprehensions.
I would guess generalized incompetence, but I don't know.
One of the concerns I have with this is the area from the hillside itself does not actually cover the surf area. And so any of the ponga boats actually coming onto the beaches, we wouldn't be able to see from those cameras. You would have to be able to see them from way far out, yes, but then by the time they come onto the beaches itself, our cameras would lose them. And then, of course, you'd have to turn off the blackout area and sweep the entire city to try and find them. So that is a big concern of mine. When it comes to whether these will help or hurt, another concern I have is, and what we're seeing, is that where these cameras are, we'll actually have these boats go further out and actually be more at risk, being in the deeper oceans. And I would much rather apprehend them here than get them caught up in what you'll see is these smugglers are going to take riskier and riskier measures to skirt around those surveillance cameras, and that's actually going to lead to more deaths. So what we have seen is that these cameras don't necessarily deter. All it does is make it riskier.
Can I speak to that?
Sure.
Sure. Since April 16th, there's been 3 occasions where Coast Guard has intervened with 3 different vessels out near San Clemente Island. Yes. That's about as deep as it gets out there. They recovered over 80 people from those boats. Not one person was injured. And out of those 80 people, there were several with felony records, felony warrants, receiving stolen property, aggravated assault, domestic violence. You know, I'm sure they're just people trying to come back. And so I see no evidence that encountering them farther out is going to cause any more danger than coming in through 8-foot surf. My opinion.
I can speak to that. I think that's great that they got them there. And that's what our federal government should be doing, to monitoring those areas to find them before they make it up here. And a camera area such as on San Clemente Island that could cover a lot more area that also would not look over residential areas would be a much better use of our federal funds for that. And yeah, I'm not saying like we shouldn't be stopping illegal immigrants. We absolutely should be stopping them and protecting our borders 100%. My concern is that the system for this camera, specifically on top of our hill, we lose our civil liberties and the risk of the surveillance with that in order to stop these other boats. I think there are just better alternatives than the one that's being proposed on our hillside.
You want to go?
So, Bill, did you want to say anything else? Or? Okay, so at this point, I wanted to open it up to some of our dignitaries and representatives that you don't have to say anything, but if you want to say something, I appreciate you coming out. We have federal, we have state, we also have a local neighbor as well. So if, before we open it up to the rest of the crowd, I'd like to open it up to them if they have any comments.
Thank you. I appreciate you holding this forum. I don't like criticizing my neighbor cities. There's a lot that we do together. Like Bill mentioned, we give them everything they want in San Juan Capistrano because part of what they do is keep us safe as well. So they have an important role in our communities. Over my 10 years as a city council member, I've seen Sacramento take away local control. And you've probably heard that from your own city councils. Giving control, local control over to another agency, especially a federal government, is the last thing a local official should want. Why? Because when you have issues, who do you go to? You go to your local elected officials. We should be accountable to all of you. But when you defer that to another agency, there's nothing we could do. And so I think this is a terrible situation that the city's gotten itself into. It's basically said, put up a camera of federal government and we have no oversight over you. We can't respond to our residents anymore. We can't guarantee that you won't be surveyed. And I've seen some of these cameras. I'm on the OCFA as well. They have cameras all over the place. They're specifically set up with AI to detect smoke, not human beings. And so I've seen some of those cameras and I wonder, they can look into a lot of different places, but they're set up to specifically look for emergencies. And I think it's terrible. I think $10, I don't want to get too much into that, but a city should not try to profit off of anything, but a city should at least, at the very minimum, get back staff time. So my question, I have 2 questions for your city. How much have you spent on staff time? 1, and how will these cameras change your response to actual Ponga boats ending up on your coastline, which was the whole point of this to begin with?
Well, specifically, how much have we spent on I'm not sure. This was brought up by the city council, and I'm sure sometimes at your city council, you direct staff to do things that probably a lot of your residents don't think is right. That's just part of the deal. That's why they elected you, and sometimes that's just decisions that you make. As far as the, so this isn't really an immigration issue. I mean, to most people here, I get that it's a privacy issue. That seems, yeah, I mean, that's absolutely fine. I agree with you 100%. I don't think it's an immigration either issue in that I never want to see another Ponga boat come in, period, here. Don't want to see people get hurt, don't want to see people get human trafficked. I know that since we announced that we passed this, that we approved this, we haven't had one Ponga boat incursion here because I'm not sure the cartel knows whether we have them or not. So it looks like they're going farther and farther out. I think that's great. I think we could ensure that a Ponga boat never came in again. That would be it. So I don't really consider immigration as much as deterring dangerous activity. As far as the privacy issue, I mean, every time I fly, Homeland Security does a facial recognition on me and finds a lot more information than anybody finds from a license plate reader or anything that you could find tracking somebody on the city. I don't have a problem with that because I want to make sure nobody gets on that plane that's dangerous. So that's fine. Well, are any of you people that are saying it's a choice? Do any of you fly? Oh, of course. Of course. Well, I want to hear, the one thing I haven't heard the presentation, what I expected is all the negative incidents that have occurred from cameras, license plate readers, it's a perceived invasion of privacy, but there should be a few examples of how somebody has been pulled over by somebody, whatever, due to a camera. So, and no, in California here. Now, I know, Bill, you gave me some examples of other states. I don't live in another state. So just, local issues.
So that is a great question. Part of the problem with actually knowing when the technology goes wrong is we never find out about it, right? Because there's not enough transparency and oversight to determine that. Now, in a few cases, we have found out about it. Usually it's a result of lawsuits that happen afterwards. So in San Francisco, you asked about license plate readers, or one example for license plate readers. I can tell you a woman in San Francisco was pulled over in a high-risk stop by police at gunpoint, forced to kneel down because a license plate reader got her license plate wrong, and they still pulled her over. So there's a bunch of examples like that. That's in California. That was actually in San Francisco. There are similar examples, but you wanted to limit to California, so I won't spend too much time on them. But another example for a license plate reader where a dog was sicked onto a motorist because, again, the license plate reader misread a license plate. So you are correct that we don't have as many documented examples of this as we would like, but a large part of that is because law enforcement keeps that information to themselves. They don't tend to like to issue press releases when they got something wrong and something happened because of it. Although I'd love to live in a world where they did.
Briefly. Could I actually speak to one other thing and then?
Sure.
Yeah. One of the other things you mentioned is, yes, you're right. I'm not worried about law enforcement going after me. What I am worried about, though, is based on the history of some of our federal agencies over the last year and a half, that they can use the surveillance equipment to go after those who don't look like me. And to do that in a way that can be nefarious. And so that is my concern. We have a lot of residents in this town who are becoming more and more afraid of taking their kids to school, more and more afraid of going to work. And having this in place, whether it is used appropriately or not. Again, assuming they do use it completely appropriately, the perception that our town has a Big Brother camera looking over them makes our residents live in fear. And that is my concern.
I'm glad you brought that up because I guess you're talking about Minnesota. Well, I mean, let me tell you, as a former law enforcement officer, I was embarrassed by what happened in Minnesota. It was abhorrent, the activity there. But none of those activities by those DHS or ICE agents was caused because they found somebody on a camera and went and tracked them down. You know how we know that they were abhorrent activities? Because somebody videoed them. That it was cameras that actually showed that it was the issue. Oh, well, no, though there was, well, no. Wait. No. Wait a minute. The original arrest of the guy that was shot in the leg, as they said he was running from it and all that, that was a surveillance camera that picked up the fact that that wasn't the case. So I understand what you're saying about that. That's fine. As far as the license plate readers, a couple of lawsuits, I'm sure. Does anybody here live in Talega? Oh, one or two people. Okay, Chilean burglars were caught 2 years because of a license plate reader. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of arrests nationwide of dangerous felons that are arrested because of license plate readers. And if you want to take somebody that, you know, was taken out of a car at gunpoint, that happens without license plate readers sometimes, you know, when plates are entered, you know, incorrectly or whatever.
As well as arrests of dangerous individuals. They happen before license plate readers as well.
Well, I don't know about that, but I'm just talking about from a law enforcement standpoint. Yes, sometimes there's inaccuracies.
The difference is your city has no oversight over the cameras. So, like, in San Capistrano, we actually have surveillance in our city, and we actually have a contract where we can get the data that's being collected, and only a few people have access to it. But we actually have oversight.
I think, let me repeat that really quickly. The statement was that, yes, we do use surveillance, and I want to be clear, I'm okay with surveillance. What I'm not okay with, and what Councilmember Sergio was saying here was that surveillance without accountability is the issue. So yeah, I am okay. I'm okay with cameras. I'm okay even with license plate readers as long as there's an accountability for them. And my concern with this particular camera is that there is not. So now I wanted to go on. I didn't see Alyssa or Abby here unless they showed up. Oh, Alyssa, did you want to say anything? You don't have to. I'm just here to listen. Okay, thank you. That is Alyssa Napuri from Supervisor Katrina Foley. And then we also have Maya Munir here. Did you want to say anything? Again, you don't have to. Okay, and then, all right. And then we also have Colton Ruffin here from Congressman Mike Levin's office.
I do have something to say, so I will provide some remarks. Hi, everyone. Thank you all for having me here today. My name is Colton, and I'm here on behalf of the Congressman to speak directly to some of the concerns that many of you have voiced about the surveillance tower in San Clemente. We recognize that there is significant opposition to this project, and the Congressman shares a lot of your concerns on how this process was handled and the privacy implications it carries for your neighborhood. It is important to note that this was a city-level decision. The City Council sought this out and negotiated directly with U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Our office was not involved or included in those negotiations, and the Congressman was only informed of the plan after those conversations were already well underway. Since learning about the project, the Congressman has submitted several requests to CBP for information on the tower's deployment. He urged CBP to not finalize the agreement with the city until they shared more information about the agreement. As many of you know, the DHS is still under a partial government shutdown. DHS has used this shutdown to delay sharing information and scheduling a briefing with our office on this. So we've also heard from many of you and met directly to hear some of your concerns. I think some people in this room, we've met with a lot of you. We've taken your concerns and questions in consideration. The Congressman will be asking federal officials about your questions later this week in their meeting. We will be meeting with CBP later this week. So the Congressman has many of the same questions you have. The objective is maritime surveillance. Why is the tower on a hilltop in a residential community instead of close to the shoreline? What are the checks and balances of this? How do we know how it's being used? So as the city entered into this agreement directly with the agency, Congressman Levin really would only have two physical abilities to stop it in his power. The first and strongest is passing legislation to block it or impose privacy protections. This would be quite challenging as it is a completely Republican-controlled Congress. So that is generally, they've not been opposing the president, so that would be kind of one of the avenues. The second would be conveying his opinion directly to CBP and calling them to reverse course. he has already done this, and as I mentioned, CBP has not had a willingness to engage with our office on this. So currently, our best opportunity through our own capacity is to attach legislation to a rider to the annual funding bill. Niche terms, but it's kind of a niche thing that's semi-connected into the general language of the bill. This bill is written by House Republicans and has not been released yet, but our office has requested that they've included language requiring DHS to share surveillance risks that this tower poses to private residences. So that's in process, it's been worked on, but it hasn't been released yet. That will arm us in the ability to argue against it in the future. Now, if they don't include this language, the congressman plans to offer it as an amendment to the bill in coming time. Now, this is all kind of still in flux, and so where we're able to kind of get involved is kind of still kind of in the works, but that's where we've already submitted, and then we're kind of playing it by ear how that goes forward. So we will continue to push for answers that this community deserves and keep you updated as we move through the DHS and legislative process. If there are any additional questions that any of you have directly for us, what we're doing, anything like that, or just general questions that you'd like us to ask them. I know there's a lot of you, and I might not be able to ask any question, but you can find me afterwards, and I'll be here to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
And by the way, I mean, if Mike can do whatever he needs to do, and they decide not to put this in, that's fine. I mean, that's what he's there for. It's not a hill we're going to die on. I just want to address your assertion that we entered into a horrible contract. You do realize, well, you know how much we charge the OCSD to use our tower? The one that you guys use. You know how much you charge them? No. I'm just. Do you know how much we charge? No, I don't. Just know that. Zero. We do not charge for any kind of public safety access to our equipment, and we do not have access to anything OCSD uses on that tower. So that's all. That's all I'm saying. We don't charge for the fire department or the deputies.
Yeah. So at this point, I don't believe was Ryan Pham or Harrison. Oh, did you want? Just here to listen. Great. Okay, thank you. So at this point, I wanted to open it up to questions. And what we'll do, questions we can be taken at the microphone here. I do see that we have a former council member in the back, so former mayor as well. And I would like, if he's okay with it, have him go to the front of the line on that. But then if you have questions, and again with this isn't necessarily time for comments, except for maybe you. And but for questions on on what we're doing, try to keep the question under a minute. So again, this isn't like your time to say, I like this, I don't like this. The decision has already been made. So this is a time to discuss specific questions that you have on the proposal.
All right. Hey, everybody. Chris Duncan here. As Mark mentioned, former council member and lucky enough to be mayor in 2023. I don't have a ton of time because now that I'm not in office, I've got all kinds of other duties. My wife has me making dinner tonight, and she's bringing Olivia to cheer, and I got to be home to give Rico dinner. So I won't take too much of your time. But I think it's important to give a little perspective here, and I'm pretty sure I can offer it. You know, as many of you know, maybe some of you know, I know Rick knows and Mark knows, I actually worked at Customs and Border Protection my whole career almost. I worked hand in hand with Border Patrol agents every day of my life for 16 years. I started out in El Paso, I was in San Diego, I was in the council's office. I wasn't a gun carrier, but I was their attorney that they went to for any kind of operational advice. We defended them when they got sued. We defended them when they were attacked. We prosecute criminals with them. That's mostly what we did. So I worked with these agents that we're talking about every day. And they're incredible people, believe me, by and large. So it's tragic to me to see what Rick talked about happened in Minneapolis, because when law enforcement officers lose trust of the public, they lose everything. And that's not a safe place for anybody to be. Another thing I did is I worked to install cameras along the border as their counsel, right? And so I understand the power of the cameras, their capabilities, and I can tell you that cameras inevitably are effective in remote locations. That's where they are, okay? They put in remote locations because one, you don't want to deploy agents all over the place, right? We can't have agents on vessels with CBP's air and marine operations out in the middle of the ocean be highly ineffective. Just like you wouldn't be effective to have agents roaming around in the middle of the border where there isn't any people. So you use these cameras to force multiply and allow them to leverage the camera's capabilities where you don't have agents. But the second part of that means it works because you don't have a lot of other stuff, right? Because the camera's, the sensor is a motion detection sensor. So if you have a lot going on, like a hilltop here that has a lot of people below and even a lot of people in the ocean here, it's going to be very distracting for the camera, and it's not going to be able to effectively pick up things, right? So that's why we don't have cameras on our coast. I had cameras for a long time. How come there's not very many cameras on the coast, right? The other thing is Ponga boats generally are a very inefficient way to bring people into the country. And they're not bringing the dangerous people into the country on Ponga boats, believe me, because it's very likely that they're going to be caught. It's very likely it's going to capsize. The hardened criminals, the people that the cartel really wants to get in here, they're not coming on a boat. Okay, they're not coming on a boat. They're coming through a tunnel. They're coming through ports of entry. You want to put money, put them at the ports of entry. That's where most people are coming through. They're coming right through the ports of entry. That's where our resources should be directed based on my 16 years of experience. And I don't know why that's not happening. It's sexier to give it to the Border Patrol and Anduril. But so if you are going to do a camera, and you do have to be high, I agree with Rick on that, you've got to be elevated. You certainly don't want to put it in an area where there's a lot of other people. It's going to be highly ineffective. And I can also tell you that you would never do this without oversight. There's no way that you would do this without oversight. In fact, when we put cameras on ranchers' land, we give ranchers access to that information. I know I was part of the negotiating those agreements, and they have to get security clearances to be able to get access to that information. Why are we not giving access to our own city council right here in a populated area? I'd have to, maybe that's my question. So I think the bottom line is, look, this is a law enforcement town. It is. We celebrate our law enforcement officers here. We have a great deal of gratitude for our sheriff's deputies, our firefighters. This town, in a bipartisan way, and in my experience on city council, is almost always willing to support our law enforcement, right? And that includes the Border Patrol, who we invited in to come to our law enforcement nights, right? Like, we're one of the few times bring them in. We bring them in and their bands for our regular city functions. Most places don't do that because we respect what they do, right? The everyday Border Patrol agent. And that's not what this is about. This is about a system that's being set up that is going to be highly inefficient and have zero oversight. And that isn't what we did at CBP. Because when you do that, and especially with everything else that's going on, you erode public trust. When you erode public trust, people don't report things to you. They're worried about what you're going to do. They're worried about their own safety from you. Last thing you want when you're a law enforcement officer is to have members of the public think you're the enemy. Right? So this feeds into that, right? So I hope that that the city council can revisit this. I hope that they can ask for the kind of reasonable oversight that we give other people when we install the camera onto their property, that we allow them to have some kind of, it can be somebody that the city council jointly appoints to get images on a periodic basis. Something so that the city council can go back to the public and say, don't worry, everything's okay here. We can tell you that what we've seen is they are focusing only on this. That would be the bare minimum, right? So, and if they're not willing to do that, that's a problem, because they're doing that in other places. So I do think this is a bit of a sweetheart deal, frankly, that the city council negotiated with my friends at the Border Patrol. And I think that if we just went back and asked them for the kind of reasonable accountability that they give in other settings, that would be a real tell. Because if they walk away at that point, I think you could be pretty sure that they were going to be doing something a little bit more than was contemplated, right? So that's where I'm coming from, you know, so I hope that the city council will rethink it. I have to get back to dinner, so I can't stay around for the question and answer session, but I hope a little bit my background with the agency can help folks provide a little context no matter which sort of side you're coming from here. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for that question in under 1 minute. No, that was a good thing. So, what I'd like to do right now, if you have, again, a question for any of us up on the panel, or even if it's something I can't answer, I'll try and get back to you with the staff. What I'd like you to do is make a line up over here. And then again, to get to the question with under a minute. Otherwise, we'll be here a very long time. And we'll do our best to answer your questions. Again, this isn't necessarily a statement of, hey, what you did was wrong. It's a, what can you tell me more about this specific thing? Looks like we got the line up over here. Luis, would you like to start? Yeah, you can use the mic right there, yeah.
Regular. First off, I'd like to thank the two of you for coming here. I think it's very important, and I think it's going to help a lot of our residents and neighboring towns feel better, possibly worse, but at least there's knowledge being put forward, and I appreciate that very much. And we're not here to beat up on anybody. We need answers. So, you mentioned, Rick, that there were 17 people who died versus the privacy of 70,000 citizens. Now, I understand I don't want to see anybody dying to get to this country, but that's been a fact of life since the beginning of time. I think of the Vietnamese boat people who died in droves trying to get away from Vietnam. And I think of relatives and Jewish people who tried to get to this country only to be turned away and the boats sent back. So this has been going on forever. But when you look at the 17 people that have been earmarked as undesirables to begin with, I'm not trying to qualify this that way, but versus the privacy of our residents, those of neighboring towns, the stigma of what this town is going to represent. Who wants to come here and spend money? And our town is strictly based on an income of tourism. And when we have the Olympics, it'll be interesting when those people come and say, what the heck? So I do need to know why 17 people versus 70,000. Also, the boats between the border and Los Angeles, there's been umpteen different numbers. At one point, I heard that there were 18 between the border and LA, and like 11 landed here. But some people say 18. We've never gotten a real number from you guys. How many of those people have been arrested? And how much were they carrying in drugs? How many bricks in their backpack? And was it really that impactful? And of the 3 boats that you mentioned since April, whatever, with 80 people plus or minus that were apprehended by the Coast Guard, I applaud that. And it seems like the Coast Guard was doing their job. So my question is, why do we need the tower? Thank you.
You don't have to respond. But
Louise, I appreciate your comments, and of course, I can't come and answer the 17 versus the whatever. I mean, absolutely. As far as how many whatever people were actually that landed got away, we don't know whether they were potential busboys or gardeners or meeting with family or drug dealers. We don't know. You're absolutely right.
Thank you. All right.
My name is Lynn Smith. I appreciate you two and the expertise you've given as outsiders, and also to Chris Duncan, since he worked for that department. So you two gentlemen, thank you so much, and also to Chris Duncan. Assumptions or prejudices, that's a statement I'll make. But the question is, why should three council people, make a decision for what I found out today? It wasn't just San Clemente citizens, San Juan citizens, Dana Point, Capo Beach. So three people, why are three people get to vote on what happens to all those people?
Thank you. I mean, the short answer to that question is we're in a representative government, and that's how our democracy works on those decisions. I think if you are upset with how those three votes went, to make your voice heard. Anything you want to say on that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the fact is, I know you might not think this, but actually we got a lot of emails that were in support of this also. It's just not 65,000 people against three. Well, I kept them. Well, I probably not, but the fact is, no matter how anybody votes on this council, no matter what the issue is, you are speaking for a percentage of the residents, no matter what. And Mark and I have been on the same side of the votes most of the time. Sometimes we're not, but we're still speaking for residents.
Hi, my name is Alex. I live in Talega. Just for preface, I am an attorney. I was with the Public Defender's Office for 10 years, and now I'm a defense attorney in private practice. So I have professionally dealt with law enforcement breaking the rules and being held to account. And unfortunately, hundreds of attorneys have a full-time job based on that. So in the best of circumstances, law enforcement abuses its privilege and goes outside of its scope. Adding into the fact, not to sound trite, but to quote Mark Twain, he literally says, support your country always and your government when it deserves it. Why are we now accommodating an administration that does not deserve our accommodation? Why are we willy-nilly offering not just the $10 contract, but making it easier for them to continue breaking the rules and continue abusing the rights and murdering American citizens? So my question is it too late? Is there even anything we can do at this point to try and rein this in, cancel it, put any form of guardrail on it, or are we just stuck with clearly a lot of people from the community who have come, and I'm interpreting your grumbles, but it seems as though they were timed with my grumbles, and a lot of people are not happy about this. So is it too late? Are we crying over spilled milk? Is there anything that can be done at this point?
Great question. So, in terms of the contract itself, the contract is signed, it is done. Now, there can be a breaking of the contract. If the council decided to change their mind on this, there can be a breaking of it, and then the city would be liable for the cost of the camera and the installation and whatever legal fees might go along with that. There's another option of changing the aspects of the contract, but again, this would take someone from council who voted yes on the contract to then change their position on that and say, maybe we don't want it at the top of the hill, or maybe we want to change an aspect of the contract in terms of accountability, but that would take one of the three council members to change on that. Another option is the state attorney general is currently looking at this and seeing if there is anything that can be done in terms of SB 54 and whether this breaks that or not. So there's a legal avenue there, but that would be taken not from the city's standpoint, but from the state standpoint. And then, as you mentioned, there's not a lot of hope from a federal perspective, but that can also change come November as well. And then also come November as well, there's also elections in the city too, and you can make your voice heard that way too. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, and I think you went a little bit out of the scope for the city when you talked about the national situation. That's we have to bifurcate that in this particular, so I'm not going to take a stance on that, even though I think I agree with some of the things you said. I think we are waiting to see, there are some people that need to weigh in on this to see what actually will happen. I think it's common knowledge now that the camera's not been installed. And there's probably a reason for that. I think Mike Levin probably has been a part of that, opening up the conversation. I think they are looking at the interaction with a federal program. So this hasn't, we approved it. We are under contract, but I think there's some conversations that are still being had.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Even though you've signed the contract, you did say you could cancel it and all that. Why don't you let the voters decide it at the polls with a ballot measure in November?
So to do that would take a ballot measure from the people themselves. And if you've been following along with the measure in order for the sand replenishment and fire safety measure coming in November, that took a lot of signatures, a lot of work, but it would have to be citizen-led. I would assume that the council, considering the vote that happened, would not be in agreement of putting this on the ballot, but it would have to come from the citizens themselves. Anything to add to that? Okay.
I think you're.
Okay, but it's a good question. But yeah, for it to be a ballot measure, it would have to be a citizens' initiative to make that happen. And then even then, the city would still break the contract on that, which would come at a cost to the city itself.
You're saying the Attorney General and all that could weigh in and say no, and you'd have to break the contract.
And then we would also have to break the contract there as well. So again, we are liable in this. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Mike Wexberg. I'm a resident of San Clemente. Thank you, gentlemen, for all coming here today. I just want to note that before I retired a few years ago, I retired as Director of Advanced Programs at the Raytheon Surveillance and Sensor Systems Business Unit. And I've worked on over 100 surveillance system development programs. And when I first saw this was coming up, I took a look at it and I said, something doesn't match here. One of the first things you do when you start on a new system development is you figure out what your mission is, and then you figure out what sort of equipment you need to execute that mission. These towers that CBP has been installing for border protection in most of them in desolate areas, that equipment is pretty well matched to that mission. You could just see very quickly that that's true. This tower in that position on top of the hill and what they want to do, it was easy for me to see there's something wrong here. It's not matching what they say they want to do with it. Now, if you look at the lease agreement itself, the word maritime is only in the lease agreement one time, and it's actually in a location reference, so it's irrelevant. So maritime is in the city report a couple of dozen times, but in the contract, one time and only with respect to position. The word surveillance is only in the contract one time under permitted uses. But it's that one word. Now, I can tell you from my background, there are many, many, many forms of surveillance. And this would give them license to do anything in terms of installing different kinds of surveillance systems. Now, the other thing, the real question I would have for somebody is, show me the analysis that says that this complement of sensor systems and equipment can actually execute this mission of interdicting maritime traffic in this environment, dense environment. There's all kinds of other issues that I could point out, but would take too long. I question whether they did the analysis. One of the jobs I had once was we had to figure out where to install interceptors for the National Missile Defense System, which was installed around 2000. And I led a group of 100 software engineers modeling that system and how it's going to work. And it took 3 years to do the work, to figure out where to put the interceptors. They're oddly in Vandenberg and then up in Alaska. And interceptor farms in those locations can defend the entire country from 1 or 2 or 3 missiles from whoever happens to fire them at us. And that was a very big effort just to figure that out. Don't need anything that big necessarily, but I don't think this equipment matches the mission that they want to execute, and it will probably be a failure, is my opinion. If they have something alternative to prove that I'm wrong, I'd like to see it.
Thank you, Mike.
Unfortunately, I think the only one that could answer that question is the DHS, because they're the only ones that know the specific type of equipment that they're installing. And that information was not part of the lease and not part of the agenda report. So, and I don't expect they'll be helping us with that.
But I can tell you what that location's good for. Covering people.
So, John Hauser, I'm a resident. I'll be a little shorter than my friend Mike, but I won't be as riveting, that's for sure. Yeah, my concerns, well articulated on and expressed on the slides, you know, I think are shared by a lot here. So I have just a couple of questions brought up by my lawyer friend. We have a lease, and there are consequences for breach. It seems to me right now pretty low cost if it hasn't been implemented yet. So the time to undo this, do something better, is now, it seems to me. And the other thing, 2 questions. So there's going to be a cost to this, right? The city is taking on some potential liabilities for privacy invasions and such, false arrests, things like that. They can be very costly to defend. Our insurance premium is going to go up as a result for the city. I mean, there's probably a joint powers, but still, you know, somebody's ultimately paying for that.
Yeah, I can't speak to the insurance rates. That would be, you're right, we have a joint powers, and that hasn't been changed yet as far as I'm aware. And
It seems this could have a consequence for that, right?
Yeah, it could, but I don't know. I can't
Maybe
foresee
they need
that.
to see a loss history.
Yeah. But no, it is a great question, and I think the broader question is the liability risk that we are taking on as a city. Is that worth the cost? And you make a point of what if there's a time to change it, now would be the time, but that would take someone to change their mind on the vote.
Hopefully people are listening.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
One part of it that I can address is the specific type of tower that they're talking about in the lease and in the agenda report is relocatable. Some would interpret that as portable. So even in the worst case scenario, the equipment's not permanent.
Yeah, and that is a good point. There could be a case where we could move that specific camera to a bluff side instead of on top of the hill itself. And again, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. But from talking with legal counsel, that would be the best way to go about changing the contract without breaking the contract. So.
Hi, Chris Wood, San Clemente resident. If you were to tell me that we were using these cameras to look for Chinese submarines, it would make sense. We've just had 20 million people come across the border, and we're going to build this on taxpayers' dollars to find 11 panga boats? No, we're not. That's ridiculous. That's not, as the gentleman said, that's not what this is for. And if you want to refer to the Constitution, it says, privacy, governing law enforcement, Fourth Amendment, the Supreme Court has ruled that extends situations where individuals have reasonable expectations of privacy and surveillance, right? So if these cameras are not looking for something other than a bunch of Mexican guys on a boat, because of the way it's built, the way that the system is built. It's not about looking at maritime things. It's not looking for invaders. It's being used as a test bed to see how we can surveil people. And you guys have thrown San Clemente under the bus.
One thing that was brought up here with the camp, because I've been told two different things with the camera. One, I've told that the camera can surveil 20 miles out, and at the same time, I'm being told it can only go 5 miles out. So again, we don't know what type of camera is actually being used. But if it is a camera that only goes 5 miles out, well, it's about 2.5 miles away from the coast, so half of its surveillance is actually overlooking our city, and I think that is concerning. Yeah.
Yes, Patricia Holloway, San Clemente, longtime San Clemente resident. I'm a little distressed about the, when this first started out, I understood it to be a life-saving issue, with the tower was going to identify, panga boats or other vessels on the ocean, and then, we'd be able to go and save people's lives or prevent the boat from coming on shore and endangering, beachgoers and fishermen and kids and so on. Or, jumping in a car and racing through our neighborhoods, not good. So I have no understanding, it was not discussed at all, of how does this work? I mean, is the tower contacting the San Clemente lifeguards? Are they contacting the Coast Guard? Are they contacting Camp Pendleton? I mean, I don't even know how this is supposed to save people's lives. So that's question number one. How does it really work for what I thought was the original purpose? And then can these facilities be hacked? Can they, not only turn their gaze on San Clemente residents, can they swivel around and check out Camp Pendleton? I mean, that's of concern to me. And then can we bring this back to our city council? I would like this to, can we please bring this back to our city council for a second look to address some of these questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
So to address the question of specifically how the communication works, these are autonomous systems. So events that are of interest, that are identified by the autonomous system, they flag it and will contact a CPB agent. So that's how that part works. At least for the towers that we suspect that these ones are. So outside of that, I don't know what happens then. I don't know the interactions once a CPB agent is contacted and that some event of interest is identified. I don't know what happens after that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you.
Susan Sanders, and I'm a resident of Dana Point. And I'm at the highest point, Water Tower 10, South Coast District. They put a pole in. There was an air raid signal, which was for San Clemente. And I was wondering why it was there, and I was in the 10-mile ring. We're all toast if San Clemente blew. Once they made the decision, because of the problems with the Mitsubishi reactors.
Talking about songs and the...
Yeah.
Yes.
And they shut that down. The air raid signal came down, and the pole became an antenna farm. And I'm here to tell you, it will never go away. It's been there, and it will be there as long as I live there, and I stare at it every day. The other thing is we have satellites circling the globe constantly. They see what's on the water. You don't need this. that information is there. You know, beef up the Coast Guard in Dana Point Harbor. Get faster boats if you need to get out to these pongas. But this is a very expensive solution looking for a problem. And San Clemente is a beautiful town, and you shouldn't be doing this to your citizens. And you shouldn't be also including the rest of us who didn't have the opportunity to vote for you. And I will ask everybody here, had this been their platform, would you have voted for the three?
And we won't again.
Thank you.
Thank you. One thing to mention is that Bill is. Do you have that kiosk that will be? Oh, yeah. Yes. Do you want to mention that really quickly?
Everyone, only one person can do it at a time, but there's a little laptop in the back corner there, and there's an interactive map. If you plug your address into the box in the upper left, you can search and see if you're likely to be surveillable from this system.
And also, residents from Dana Point can also check that out as well as San Juan too. Yeah.
Hi, Mike Kay. I'm a resident for San Clemente. First, I want to thank Councilmember Ed Meyer and our fine Mayor Loeffler for coming together in a spirit of cooperation and communication. We need more of that in this world, regardless of what side of the aisle you're from. A civilized discussion is profoundly needed and much appreciated. So thank you for coming together and do that. Second, I want to softly admonish a lot of people here today. I sat through 2 of these council member discussions. There's only 3 or 4 of us who did that. It's a 4-hour sit by the time you do the whole thing. And it was discussed at length, extreme details. I know exactly how it's reported. I know it goes to all the way up to the Port of LA. That's where the reporting kiosk is. They went into extreme details and all this stuff. So an informed citizen who actually puts in the time and does this stuff can comment during the appropriate time when decisions are coming together, when ideas are being formulated. And I'm frustrated that there was only maybe 12 of us the first time it was discussed. Many of those people were from out of town. Most were against it. The second time, I don't even think there was 3 people in the room when this was all discussed. So the time to do that is at City Council. I would encourage people every other Tuesday for 4 hours after work. I was just at work. Come on in and sit in City Council and go through this stuff. There's an appropriate time for this stuff. And to go back afterwards like this and to revisit it after it's been visited twice, after passions have come forward, after debates have been made, if we do that on every subject, we'll never get anywhere. I understand people from out of town. I like that. I had never thought of that. San Juan Capistrano, Catalina Island people, lots of people can also be affected. I'd never thought of that. So I could understand coming in and discussing all this stuff. But I also know that I don't have a say on what Oceanside does or on what Newport Beach does or others. I wish Dana Point hadn't redone their harbor. And I didn't get a say. I like boating out of there. So it's give and take a little bit. In the end, I do want to go on record in saying that I strongly support this. And that I feel as a San Clemente resident, most people in this town are understanding that we are at a flashpoint for pongas, for fentanyl smuggling on the road, on the seas.
Let him speak. Let him speak. It's okay.
My question is, why can't we have more civil debate? That's my question. I sat and listened, and you guys want to boo me off. Okay, boo me off.
So hold on. No, Mike, thank you for your question and also for your statement on there. I will make one note though. For the 2 times that this was discussed, when we had those discussions, the first one we had over 24 people speak against it and 1 or 2 people speak for it. The second time that we didn't get to the discussion until 11:45 at night because there were other hot topic issues before that. And despite being at 11:45 at night, we still had, again, about over 20 people speaking against it and 2 people speaking for it. Now, if you feel like your voice still wasn't heard, you can still make your voice heard. You can continue to speak at city council meetings, and there's public comments at the very beginning. And if you don't feel the need to stay the entire city for the entire meeting, you don't have to. If you just want to say a word or here or there, you can. You can also write your city council members your thoughts on this. And yeah, make your voice heard in numerous ways.
Thank you for setting the record straight.
Okay, I'm Warren Vadrine, city resident, and I've got 2 questions. The first one is whether this is fit for purpose. Some people have addressed this in different ways. For me, I've been 2 important places. One is I spent the questionable privilege spending most of a week on San Clemente Island. Do not want to repeat that experiment. The other one is simply walking up on the bluffs. We have a marine layer which now affects a lot of the year. It's not very thick. You can see through it from above, in general. You can't see through miles of it horizontally. I spent that time on San Clemente Island without ever seeing the mainland. More often than not, I don't see San Clemente Island from the bluff. So is it fit for purpose? I doubt it. The second question is, and this connected to the oversight question, are these people trustworthy? Okay. I remember just before the actual vote, one of the councilmen spent some time agonizing over whether these people were trustworthy, and he seemed to have some serious doubts about it. In spite of that, he did vote for the proposal. But are they trustworthy? And are they trustworthy with 0 oversight? That, I don't think so.
Thank you, Warren. Yeah, it is a great question, I think, of talking about trust in our public institutions and trust in our federal systems. And once public trust has been broken in different ways, it can be hard to build that trust back up. And whether we have that trust right now, I'm of the mindset that my trust is not as strong as it used to be. But you want to say anything to that?
Well, sure. I think the 2 issues have been brought up is what is the mission really? And there seems to be some questions. And do you trust the people who are actually doing the monitoring? And we have probably disagreements about that. And that's fine to have. It's unfortunate there hasn't been any quantitative information or evidence one way or the other. So sometimes you just got to go, on your feeling from the information you've gotten. And again, we can disagree about that.
Thank you, Warren.
On the appropriateness of the equipment, I would tend to agree that when there's a marine layer, that cameras, like visual cameras, are not going to be particularly useful. I don't know enough about the technology, but I'm guessing that radar, which this installation will have, is probably going to be more effective when there's a marine layer than a camera will. But there's also other sensors that we don't know about, that wasn't provided in the staff report, and again, we may never know about.
And I was told that there will be radar on this camera. So
One thing radar is susceptible to is ground clutter, and that includes waves. So I don't have much confidence in radar that way.
thank you, Warren. We're getting a little bit late on time here right now. I'm thinking if we can do these last 3 questions, And then from there, we'll stick around. We can answer any other questions that you have. And then, yeah, I think our time will come to an end. Yeah, so our last couple questions here. Great.
My name's Dave Silver. I'm a resident of San Clemente. I believe in two adages. First, when in doubt, do without. If there's a lot of doubt, don't do it. And there seems to be an awful lot of that. And the other is, if you take an inch, you get a mile. In this case, 15 or 20 miles. So I'm not in favor of this, obviously, but to cut to the chase, are you willing to change your vote? Will you change your vote?
Oh, I can't discuss that now. There isn't a vote to be taken.
It was mentioned that if one person changes his mind, something could be done.
As I said, this is going through a process. I voted the way I voted, and I still feel good about my vote because I disagree with most of you about what the mission is, and I disagree with most of you about trusting the people that are monitoring it.
Okay, we'll all recall that. Thank you.
My name is Gail, and I'm a citizen of San Clemente. If this was truly just about panga boats and keeping, why couldn't we just have drones going up and down the coastline? Seems like really inexpensive. Seems like we could do it all the time. I look outside my house, I see drones flying all the time. Why couldn't that be done? That's one question. And then somebody said that camera's up high, then it goes down low, and somehow it misses like the beach land. So, okay, so somebody calls somebody and says, oh, there's a panga boat. Okay, then it takes all this time to get somebody. By that time, the panga boat is landed, but they're landed on the sand and you can't find them. Oh my, now you have to surveil the whole city to go find people running? Does that scare anybody? Makes me very uncomfortable.
Oh, so your question was?
My question is am I
Sure,
correct when I say that?
Well, yeah, we have plenty of video of these pangas landing and the people running from them. Plenty of video of it. That's fine. The reason we want to have the surveillance is so we intervene before they ever get to the beach. Once they're on the beach, they're all gone. What's happened. They have video of the people dying in Imperial Beach. It's great video, but it doesn't stop the problem. That's why the surveillance is a maritime surveillance out in the ocean.
Why wouldn't a drone do the same thing?
Well, we'd have to have that drone 5 miles out in the ocean. I don't think that's legal to do. I think you have to have a drone in eyesight when you're flying it. So it's the practicality of it.
1984.
I would only say one other thing, that this is, in terms of monitoring for illegal crossings and other things, it is a policy decision of how to do it best. Some administrations would say using drones is a better use. Others would say using closing borders. And so different administrations, the federal government is in charge of how to monitor the borders. So this is an interesting case of partnering with the federal government on that, and whether we as a city agree with this strategy of this policy of how to protect the borders or not using these surveillance cameras. All right, last one. Oh, okay, great.
So I just want to thank Mayor Loeffler for voting in favor of the camera, along with the other two council members, to go ahead and move that forward. It's unfortunate that Mark Onmeyer was against public safety on this issue. And this is
let him speak,
actually,
please.
Yeah, and this is actually what was experienced last time. For those of you who weren't here, the fact that people come up and want to speak in favor of public safety, and then a bunch of people started screaming fascist and Nazi and all sorts of things, and it's pretty ridiculous. And people were threatening me. to my safety. The police had to get involved several times. That's just not the way to have public discourse and debate. People should be able to come up here and speak for or against something without boos and jeers from the crowd. That's just, I mean, we're all adults. Let's go ahead and have just some decent conversation. I do know that there was a second camera, I believe, that CBP was interested in closer to the coast. I guess my question is, what's the process for us to go ahead and move forward with that for an agenda item? And thank you for letting me speak.
Right, yeah, I asked our staff about that today. It is in the works, but essentially we're waiting right now on CBD to come back. Customs Border Patrol, CBD, wrong acronym there. But Customs Border Patrol to come back with what they want to do with that. That was, again, the original proposition was just having cameras on the bluffs. So that is still in process. They're still talking about it. It's in their ball field right now of what they want to do with that or not. Right now, I think because there's no camera in our city right now, I would assume that they don't want to do anything before this first one comes. But again, that is, we're waiting on them to come back to us on that. In terms of how we discuss things, and I just want to set the record clear, how we talk with each other when someone is up here, we need to give full respect, but also we need to give respect even when we're out there as well. And some of the things that happen out there are provoked, and so we want to make sure that everyone is being respectful, whether we are up here or out there. Okay, and I think we have one more comment.
First of all, thanks everybody for being here. Thank you guys for hosting this. You guys did a great job. Thank you for attacking this. So what I want to point out is this, a couple of things to address. Last year I did research on maritime's technology. I have a technology background in AI, firewalling, topologies. Believe me, you guys know where I'm going with this. First thing I discovered was this. In last year, August, maritimes had been hacked. Brutal attacks. Fort Bruce, I mean, you know what I'm trying to say. Anyway, it was China, Russia, India, all these guys attacked maritime's technology because that technology is so old, even though it has AI in it, they don't have the personnel to keep it up. So they're behind the ball, number one. Number two, last time I was here in November, in this chamber, I actually heard these words spoken when asked by one of the council members, where are we with SB 54? And the answer was very telling and very disappointing. The answer was, that's an area of the law that has not been decided. Well, my question is, if it's a law, why hasn't it must have been decided? Number one. Number two, in that law, it actually states that local government, who answers to state government, does not have the right to interact with federal government unless there is an emergency. In this case, they have not proved the reason of an emergency. There has been no emergency. So my question is, if there was a crime, oh yeah, paperwork was signed, so there could be a crime in this case. And if it did go and was investigated, would there be a discovery possible in a breach of the Brown Act? Or there's been a violation of SB 54? Because local government answers to state government. Local government doesn't make state laws. So local government follows state law. So if you didn't follow SB 54's law that states schools, churches, should be a safe haven, and like Mark's case, there are people that, are afraid. People that don't look like you, but look more like me, okay? Now, you guys don't have to experience that. People that are black and brown in America today, they have a concern about this type of technology because they don't feel safe when someone is given the right to wear a mask and a gun and a badge to go in somebody's house without due process, without a warrant and no due process, and you're going to bring that technology into this city where your citizens live in fear. There are people in San Clemente that don't go to school, don't go to work. There are organizations that have to take them food, have to make sure their children go home after school, get there safe. But obviously, no one really cares about that aspect of this technology, because this technology is putting people in a position that makes them feel like that it's Nazi again, it's Germany again. They can't go out in public. I mean, these are people that pay your taxes, people that you represent. You represent. And you are telling these people that you don't give a damn about them because you're going to bring in technology that is actually going to put them to a position that...
Sherman, I got to ask you to come to the question. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
I'm sorry. My question is this. The question is this. If there was a violation of SB 54, what's the repercussions for those who initiate that violation or have broken the law?
Okay, so I brought this question up to our city attorney in terms of SB 54. And when the statement was made that the aspect of this particular law has not been decided yet, that is due to the state courts and also federal courts as well. How far would this go? So for that to be decided, a case would need to be brought against the city. And at that point, the city would decide, do we want to fight this, or would we back down and say, all right, we will go along with the remedies that are being proposed. And so from there, if we decided to take on this case, we'd ask our insurance as well, would they cover our legal fees in this case? Would they take this on? Yes or no, and then we'd have to decide, would this come at the cost of the city taxpayer, or is insurance going to cover it? Is this worth the fight to do it? Let's say it was worth the fight. We would then go to the state judicial system, possibly a district court, and then from there, based on the decision, it could possibly continue to go on or not. I look at cases that Huntington Beach has been involved in. It would probably be a similar process here in terms of SB 54. In the end, though, or I should say at the beginning of it, though, it would be a city decision from the council, and we'd probably decide this in closed session of whether we'd want to, of what legal action we would want to take. So I hope that helps answer the question in terms of that, of specifically SB 54.
Not to that, but Sherm, and I do not profess, even though I grew up in East LA, but I do not profess to be in your shoes. But there's an assumption that is the mission of this, is to somehow oppress people. That is your impression, and I respect that, but that doesn't necessarily have to be my impression.
Well, it's just because of what I see with the federal government. That's not my impression. It's what I see.
You were here.
Real.
I spoke to that.
Real.
I spoke to that earlier.
Yeah, it's real.
And I'm bifurcating that issue with this issue.
And I realize, my thing is this. You can say, you can't feel it, but until you walk in the person's shoes, then you'll really know. Let me ask you this. What if you went to bed tonight and you wake up tomorrow and you're black?
There was a movie about that. I didn't see the movie.
I mean,
no, I do not profess to being able to see the world the way that your upbringing, my upbringing was two different things. And
well, but you don't know my upbringing. My upbringing wasn't necessarily, in the ghetto.
Oh no, that's not what I said. You said being black.
I'm just saying. I don't assume anything. I didn't assume, from your perspective. I was just expressing the feeling of people that are victims of what's happening in today's society.
I appreciate that.
That's what I meant.
At this moment, thank you everyone for showing up tonight. I know this was taken out of your night on a Tuesday night, and I appreciate you coming here, listening, hearing. If one of your questions didn't get answered, please feel free to reach out to myself, to Mayor Loeffler, and happy to answer them as best as we can. We'll stick around for a little bit as well. And also, thank you, Rick, for being here tonight. And I know putting yourself out here for this. And thank you also to our presenters coming all the way down from Oakland as well to talk to this. So I really appreciate it, and appreciate all of you as well. So thank you. And also to our dignitaries too who are here. Thank you.